The bank has globally a diversity and inclusion agenda that has worked through. We have an Africa diversity and inclusion agenda, and now what we're launching today is really what we're going to focus on as the going forward Kenya diversity and inclusion agenda. And it's vitally important that this is something which makes good business sense and makes for an optimal working culture.
Barclays has come a long way in the D&I space, because if you look back at how Barclays has fashioned itself in that space, you'll then be able to see sort of like an evolution where we came from a spot of being unconscious about this whole agenda, and we prioritized some of the key areas where we want to showcase and to bring out the strength of diversity and inclusion.
In Kenya, we have 4 key pillars, and historically, I think people have thought that the D&I agenda is a women's agenda. It's a key agenda, but it's only one component. The 2 areas which I think we will have immediate priority would be the gender one and the disability one. Those would be the ones we'll focus in the short run. Doesn't mean we are not going to have plans on the others, but you'll probably see more traction in the short run on those 2 areas. The workforce is now made up of a wide variety of ages. We need to recognize that there are differences just between those generations. And in order for us to be successful, we have to integrate and optimize an environment which recognizes those differences. The other part of the pillars is the multicultural one. Now, in a lot of countries, this is also about race and ethnicity. So you can imagine in South Africa, just given their background, color and ethnicity is quite an important issue. We, as a significant business in the group, have to be open to bringing in other ethnic backgrounds into our business. And by that I mean we need to receive expatriates just as much as we need to export Kenyans. Yeah? And there's power in that equation because you get experiences from other countries, other places. But we need to make sure that we provide a supportive environment for those people to come in and succeed and contribute. So there's that aspect. Then we've got the other aspect of just ethnic background within the Kenyan context. Some countries, your ethnic background within the country is not so relevant. Like Tanzania, you don't hear them talking as much about which part of the country are you from. You don't hear all the different languages being used. They just use Kiswahili and that's it pretty much. We have to recognize that there are issues within even the ethnic background and their perceptions around this. And we need to make sure that everybody has a fair and equal chance to be able to achieve their dreams and their goals. One of the things we're focusing on, obviously, is the gender equality agenda. And many of you are obviously very aware of the work, and many of you have participated or benefited from things like the Kenya Women's Network Forum, which has obviously mentored and supported many of you to get to where you are, and continues in the form that you will hopefully mentor others who are coming up. Because the reality in our organization is that whilst we start at the lower levels of roughly 50-50 male-female split, as you start going up the organization, that ratio starts to drop. Yeah? So we've set ourselves very specific targets to ensure that women have the rights and ability to get to the most senior levels of the organization.
In most organizations, you will find fewer women at the top, so we are not very different. But our ambition is to increase the number of senior women in the business. We've already got that right at the board level. Anytime that we advertise a role, we know already from our talent pool, we know our women, we need to encourage them. We'll go directly, we'll ask them, please apply for this role, we know you can do it. If we are looking externally, we'll try and ensure we have women in the shortlist, because if they don't make it to the shortlist, they will not make it to the final and they will not be selected.
We came from a place where we only had one woman director in the bank, and through this program, then we were able to see the number has more than quadrupled, and it's a very, very successful story. And also being able to get our content out there, you know, supporting women-related functions, women in business, women on boards, and exposing the women within the bank to those external functions out there. So it's been a journey that started 4 years ago through the WNF Women Network Forum, and this has not been to favor or to push, but it's just been to create a platform for women through mentorship, through coaching, through feedback.
One thing that we've recently signed up and been actively involved with is another initiative which is called New Faces, New Voices, which we're partnering with the Nairobi Stock Exchange, which is really looking at how we can have the right level of dialogues around women in senior positions in the country. So we're taking this out to the world rather than just having it from within. And I think our launch here, followed by the Women in Leadership Forum that we had with the Lord Mayor recently, just really cements this. We talked about things like procurement, that the government has this 30% quota for sort of minority groups, women, etc., to get 30% of the current procurement. Today, when we look at it, today women only get 1% of that procurement.
In terms of the benchmarks that we've set ourselves, for women, for gender, we are trying to improve the number right now for director level, and for VP level, we're at about 25% of the workforce. We want to raise that number to about 35% by 2016. We know it's not easy. It's not about favoring women and trying to just push them into jobs that they will not perform. We also don't want to set them up to fail. So we've got to grow them, groom them. The Women Network Forum has done a good job, but we need to do more. We now need to actually mentor and grow those people into those positions.
When we look at the gender agenda, we're looking at what are the real issues that are impacting women as they progress their careers. What are the realities of those issues? And I think the world is changing. In past days, what would happen is people would get senior much later in their lives. So they'd get to CMC positions, typically in their 50s. Now that's happening when people are in their late 30s and in their 40s, early 40s, yeah? Which creates challenges because now, in the past days where people were 50 plus, maybe even their children were almost grown up by the time they were taking up those positions. Now you've got people in senior positions with much younger children trying to balance work, life, family. So we've got to think about some of these things as we move forward on this agenda. One of the ones that we're quite proud of is the gender diversity at our board level. This was not accidental. It was quite an intentional exercise when we were looking for new directors to come in. And we've brought on board, we were honored to be able to get these 3 powerful women who come with very diverse backgrounds to the board. It is very clear, if you have more diverse board makeup and CMC makeup, it translates into higher business performance. The other part of the pillars is around disability. We've set quite clear targets, which are we need to hire people who have got physical challenges and integrate them into our workforce, because I believe they will be able to contribute as well as anybody without those challenges. That's going to take some responsibility, because if you've got somebody with physical challenges in terms of access to the building, it means we're going to have to make investments. We're spending tens of millions making our network easy to access. We're talking about things like, are our ATMs suitably positioned that somebody in a wheelchair can easily access and use those ATMs? So we're going to actually probably look at being creative and saying people with different challenges, how would they integrate with us as a bank? What services can we provide them?
I was born as a normal baby. I lived as a normal baby up to year 5 when I was attacked by polio. I continued being very weak until I could not even sit upright. I was completely unable to walk. Challenge comes when I want to reach my workplace, because I have to rely on public means, because when there's rush, you don't get opportunity to get into the vehicle quickly. Most of the conductors in the public transport don't have time. The major challenge comes in when I'm trying to cross the road. I've already reached Westlands and I've alighted. I want to now cross to my office. Not many motorists will understand you.
I was born with a slight disability, lack of a right arm. I just had to adapt to the environment. And that is what most PWDs will actually do. They adapt to the environment.
For disability, my view is that it's just bias. It's unconscious bias. We normally think, okay, this person will require too much help, too much support. Do I have that time? I just want to bring in somebody who will hit the road running and quickly deliver results. If I have to handhold you, you're holding me back. And that is something we need to change. It's a mindset. So we need to show and demonstrate to people that disability is not inability. You can actually do better than abled people. Right now we have only 4 people with disability in the business. We are trying to raise that number to 1% of our workforce, and 1% translates to 30. So we also want to make sure we're putting them in a job that they can actually perform and excel, not in a job which will put them at a disadvantage.
My disability is not that disability that can affect my work performance, because it is a back office role.
I appreciate this job because the Barclays has made life easier for a person with a physical challenge just like me to work here compared to where I was earlier, where I used to work standing. Work was quite difficult for me because most of the time I used to move around. Mobility was difficult.
There's people who have approached me and they've told me that they don't see any disability, and that is how comfortable Barclays has made me so far.
If we want disability as a core pillar, we have to be honest, where are we starting from? Our reality is we are starting from a low base. So what do we need to do? We recognize the investments, we recognize the resourcing, we recognize the awareness, and then get the partners across the bank.
So far now, out of about 110 branch outlets, we have done 55, and work is in progress. We have stage 2 of the business case, which will take care of the remaining branches. The stage 1 of the branches, yes, we will beat the deadline of the end of this year. And I'm glad that Barclays has taken a firm step forward with a lot of support from the CMC and my functional head, because we've done this and we're doing it very well, and it's really rolling out well, and it's giving a lot of impact on our colleagues.
When it comes to banking services, most people will always use ATMs, but are all ATMs accessible? Most of the time I have to rely on an assistant, maybe a security guy who is there. I'll give him the PIN. How sure am I that when I give him that PIN, he will not misuse the PIN?
On infrastructures and amenities, I can say much has been done. The accessibility to the building is easier, the door is wide open, and also the stairs, there is a lamp to go around the stairs, and the lifts are working for all the floor. You can get to any floor within the building. About the toilets, the infirm washrooms, they have been provided. They have a wider door, and it's spacious, they are kept clean all the time. Apart from the amenities and the washrooms, the parking has been provided for me near the entrance. So it's not on the basement, right? It could be far for me to get into the building.
If we could develop products for people with disabilities, if we could develop platforms for PWDs to have their voices, maybe support them in maybe running businesses, and that would help alleviate the poverty levels, especially among the PWDs.
And what the bank is thinking about making the environment friendly in terms of the buildings and the structures and the infrastructure, that is a very nice idea, and I think we should grow with that.
So Joa Pungu and my colleagues, David and Munyo Akahiu and Bushuri, whom we are within Barclays, should have the same opportunities that I have.
And our work is just that. Keep the bank honest, keep the bank focused, and keep D&I at the front of our minds as a bank.
We're committed to this. We have senior leaders at this. I think we can own this space and we can make our difference, which comes back to, again, making this work environment in this country a better place to live and work, where we recognize and bring the best out of our diversity and include people in helping us achieve Magic 15.